After rebirth, I avoided Gu Zhichuan like the plague. When he decided to stay at the hospital, I immediately packed my bags and joined my professor's archaeological expedition in the remote mountains. The moment he mentioned bringing my sister over, I moved back to the dormitory. As soon as he bought the engagement ring, I applied to a university in faraway Beijing. In our past life, he vowed to remain child-free, yet he doted on his stepsister's childlike treasure. In old age, the child I raised with such devotion ignored my sickbed pleas to reunite his birth mother with Gu Zhichuan. 1. Seeing my name handwritten by the teacher on the travel roster finally eased my worries. Just days ago, I turned down my professor's invitation to join him at the newly discovered burial site in northern Shaanxi, because my wedding with Gu Zhichuan is happening next month. In my past life, I gave up my beloved archaeology career just to stay by his side. Yet no one could have anticipated that this seemingly ordinary expedition would lead my professors to uncover the largest tomb complex of the century. It was around this time that my classmates and teachers began their meteoric rise in the following years. As for me, I became just an ordinary middle school teacher, but little did anyone know I'd been reborn. Yajun, aren't you getting married to your fiancé next month? How do you suddenly have time to join us? Teacher Li adjusted her glasses and gave me a puzzled look. When I think of Gu Zhichuan, the first things that come to mind are his striking features and that ever-present faint scent of antiseptic clinging to him. I shook my head. The wedding, let's postpone it for now. Taking a deep breath, I said, in any case, I'm truly grateful for this second chance you've given me. Thank you. I bowed deeply. The teacher sighed and told me to pack my things, preparing to leave in 3 days. Suppressing my excitement, I walked out of the research institute. 2. In my past life, I let this golden opportunity slip away. The very next month, I married Gu Zhichuan. He's a PhD graduate from overseas, highly educated with progressive ideas. Due to his family background, he's adamant about remaining child-free. He'd made it clear before marriage, though I regret never having children of my own, but I love him, and I choose this willingly with full acceptance. So when my mom suggested taking in my sister's out-of-wedlock baby, I agreed without hesitation. Though Gu Zhichuan never wanted children of his own, he's always been wonderful to this child. I was genuinely grateful to him for that, or so I thought. He loves me, so he loves everything associated with me. It's because of his love for me that he treats this child so well, until the child marries and has children of his own. Until my old age, I treated him as my own, but in my twilight years, a sudden illness shattered the fragile illusion of happiness I'd clung to for half a lifetime. Turns out Gu Zhichuan's kindness to this child was truly love me, love my dog, not for my sake at all, but for my sister's. All these years, Gu Zhichuan hadn't just been raising his stepsister Zhou Yuting's child, he'd been supporting Zhou Yuting herself all along. Zhou Yuting doesn't have to raise children or take care of elderly parents, yet every month, she lives a leisurely life spending Gu Zhichuan's money, while I'm just the household drudge, tending to both children and aging parents. Even the child I poured my heart into raising prefers her company. Even in old age, they were still desperately trying to matchmake Gu Zhichuan and Zhou Yuting. I died with unfinished business. Remembering my pathetic past life where everyone took me for a fool, I took a deep breath and headed home. 3. Though we haven't had the ceremony yet. Gu Zhichuan and I got legally married last month. The apartment was allocated to him by the hospital, a 2-bedroom unit with a living room. I had just gotten home when Gu Zhichuan returned from work, carrying several large bags in his hands. He saw me and said with a smile, "There are so many colleagues at the hospital, I'm worried we might run short on wedding candies. Let's pack extra, so I can give some to everyone." My hands paused mid-task as I gave him a cool glance, saying nothing. "Go rest. I'll handle the picking." Gu Zhichuan didn't notice my expression as he helped me up and took my spot on the small stool. "Mom said she's bringing Yuting and Dongdong over tomorrow. Since we're short on space, why don't you move into my room and let them have the guest room?" When Gu mentioned mom, he meant my mother. Yuting was my stepfather's child from after my mother remarried. She dropped out of middle school to chase romance, only to be left alone with a baby when the man ran off. My mom urged her to secretly abort the baby, but she threatened suicide, insisting the father would return. Defying everyone's judgmental whispers, she kept the child. Dongdong is 3 years old now. In their past life, they also came up tomorrow, but only Zhou Yuting and Dongdong showed up. I later learned it wasn't my mom bringing her here at all. The moment she heard about my wedding, she rushed over with the kid in tow. To be honest, we were never that close, but the kid was so sweet, constantly calling me auntie this and auntie that. Since Gu Zhichuan wanted to remain child-free, I gradually came to treat Dongdong as my own. I shook my head. What's gone is gone. 4. Just as I thought, the next day, only Zhou Yuting and Dongdong showed up. As soon as I opened the door, I saw her gaze sweep past me, searching behind me. Where's brother-in-law? Isn't he home? Zhou Yuting brushed past me, dragging Dong Dong inside uninvited. At work, I replied flatly. Zhou Yuting dropped her bags and immediately pushed open the door. Sis, which room's mine? This one. It was the master bedroom door she'd opened. That's your brother-in-law's room. She scoffed and turned to the guest room instead. So I'm staying here then. She unceremoniously tossed her bundle onto the bed and flopped down in a starfish position. Wow, this new bed is so comfy. She paused mid-sentence and added regretfully. But I actually preferred the last room. The windows were huge. Before I could respond, Don Don tugged at my sleeve. Auntie, I'm hungry. Zhou Yuting didn't even glance at the child after hearing this. Go ask your aunt if you're hungry, she snapped. I need to rest. As if certain I'd take care of the kid, Zhou Yuting didn't even change her clothes before burrowing into my blanket and immediately dozing off. I frowned, about to tell her to get up, when Don Don gave my sleeve several urgent tugs. Suddenly, I lost all motivation. I gave him 2 leftover steamed buns from breakfast and headed out. 5. With my documents ready, I went to the dormitory just a block away and checked in. In my past life, Zhou Yuting lived with us for 3 years before moving out. This time, I'm curious to see if she'll still try every trick to stay, now that I've already secured a dorm room. With a sneer, I went to buy a few more books, then picked up some meat and vegetables on my way home. Before I even opened the door, I could hear laughter and cheerful voices inside. Brother-in-law, look, this is me and my sister when we were kids. Wasn't my sister super ugly back then? Let me tell you, folks in our village all said if she'd kept studying, she'd never have been our hometown's first college graduate. If only my mom would let me study, otherwise. I scoffed coldly and pushed the door open. Inside, Zhou Yuting and Gu Zhichuan were standing uncomfortably close. Gu held Dong Dong, who was munching on beef jerky, while Zhou nearly threw herself onto him, carrying groceries. I walked in and said, it's not that mom won't let you study. You've never ranked above 47th in a class of 50, and you dropped out of middle school to hang with street gangs. Can't even tell who the baby's father is, with that kind of track record. Do you really think you'd stand a chance at passing the high school entrance exams? Zhou Yuting's face drained of color as my words hit her. Gu Zhichuan set Dong Dong down and stared at me in confusion. I'd always kept these family skeletons locked away to preserve my image in Gu Zhichuan's eyes. He once asked me why my sister was raising a child all by herself. Before I could answer, my mother hesitantly mentioned that her husband had passed away, since Gu Zhichuan didn't live in our area. He naturally assumed my sister was widowed. He even sighed to me about how pitiable Zhou Yuting was, having married and had children so young. I must have been blind. Looking back now, that sigh of his was probably about my mom all along, since she wasn't his biological child. He sent his real daughter to college while pushing his stepdaughter into early marriage. Was that what he pitied? Now that I've revealed the truth, Zhou Yuting is utterly humiliated. Even Gu Zhichuan was looking at me with confusion. Didn't Yuting say your mother made her marry early just so you could continue your studies? Before Gu Zhichuan could finish, Zhou Yuting hastily cut him off. Watching their expressions shift, the corners of my mouth curled up. Oh Zhou Yuting, I'd love to see if Gu Zhichuan would still pity you after discovering your true colors. Over there, Zhou Yuting was frantically explaining something to Gu Zhichuan. I ignored them both and started washing rice to cook. Gu Zhichuan hurried over to help. He murmured, so I've been wrong about you all along. My chopping hand froze midair. Then came a derisive snort. Seems Zhou Yuting really said something behind my back, and this fool actually bought her lies. Otherwise, you wouldn't be feeling guilty about misjudging me now. 7. Before all the dishes were even served, Dong Dong had nearly polished off all the meat. Sis, why did you buy so little meat? There's not even enough for Dong Dong. Gotta admit, Zhou Yuting has some thick skin. After I exposed their past, they quickly acted like nothing happened. As soon as she finished speaking, her son Dong Dong nodded eagerly. I frowned in response. No worries, no worries. If it's not enough, I'll take you out for more food later. Gu Zhichuan hastily mediated. I hazily remember it was just like this in my past life. The dishes were all gone before they even reached the table. Dong Dong ate everything. What was I feeling back then? I suppose I was happy that Dong Dong enjoyed my cooking. He's got quite the appetite. That's great. But now, I just felt disgusted. I picked up my bowl. Guests should know their place, don't you think? I stared straight at Zhou Yuting. She paused, then shot Gu Zhichuan a wounded look. Gu Zhichuan hesitated, unexpectedly not defending her as usual, and instead served me a portion. Eat up. I quietly pushed the food aside with my chopsticks, leaving it untouched. After taking a few bites, I added, I've arranged a dorm for you. Stay the night, then head back. This marriage between Gu Jichuan and me is definitely not happening. Since things are falling apart between us, it's inappropriate for Zhou Yuting to keep living here. Of course, if they still choose to mess around after our divorce, that's none of my business. Can't be bothered. 8. Zhou Yuting was furious. She couldn't understand why she had to stay in the dorm when visiting her own sister. She sobbed. I know you've never liked me since we were kids, and I know you look down on me now that you're in college. Yes, I embarrassed you, but I was young and foolish back then. Can't you cut me some slack? I'm not leaving, why should I? Zhou Yuting started acting shamelessly. Gu Jichuan remained silent on the side. In the past, he would have definitely stood up for her, pushing the rice around in my bowl. I said flatly, no amount of crying will change anything. You're staying in the dorm tonight and going back tomorrow. I'll go buy the bus tickets in a bit. Seeing I wasn't joking, Zhou Yuting pouted in displeasure. After dinner, Dong Dong started clinging to me too, saying he didn't want to go back. My indifferent gaze alone made him instinctively release my hand. Children are far more perceptive than we realize. In our past life, he knew how deeply I adored him, so he could freely act spoiled with me. Now he clearly senses my indifference and no longer clings to me like before. I just didn't expect that while I was still figuring out how to send her back. After dinner, Gu Jichuan came to see me first. It's not safe for your sister to be traveling alone with a child. They should stay at our place instead. When I remained silent, he continued, if you're uncomfortable sharing a room before our wedding, you can take my bedroom and I'll stay at the dorm. Alright. I looked at the man before me, feeling a pang of sadness in my heart. I knew Zhou Yuting must have approached him secretly after failing to persuade me. My mind drifted back to my past life. Once, Zhou Yuting and I took the kids shopping for clothes, but we both fell for the same outfit. Without hesitation, he said, let Yuting have it if she likes it. She's your younger sister, you should give way to her. As if being the elder sister automatically made me the guilty party. In the end, Zhou Yuting stayed living with us. I was still staying in Gu Jichuan's place. I glanced at the dormitory receipt in my pocket, scoffed, tore it up, and tossed it in the trash. 12. The next morning, as if sensing my displeasure, Gu Jichuan made breakfast early before heading to work. Zhou Xiuting seemed afraid I'd kick her out. She stayed holed up in her room all day, only emerging when Gu Jichuan returned from work, ignoring them both. I finished my meal and retreated to my room to start packing. Outside, Dong Dong was bouncing around the living room, either shouting loudly or demanding Gu Jichuan play with him. Gu Jichuan patiently humored him. I listened irritably to the commotion outside, struggling to keep my composure. While packing my things, I heard a knock at the door. Opening the door, I saw Gu Jichuan standing outside. Ya Jun, I've finished writing all the invitations. About your family. Gu Jichuan's words trailed off as he noticed the packed luggage behind me. Why are you packing your things? Before I could respond, Zhou Yuting approached with red-rimmed eyes. Sis, do you really dislike me that much? If you insist on me leaving, then I'll go. I know you're ashamed of me bringing Dong Dong along and embarrassing you. Do you think that was my choice? I was just a kid back then. Tricked by that man, it's been torture for me too. Do you have any idea how people look at us? Are you trying to drive me and my child to our graves? Zhou Yuting wiped her tears and dashed out, dragging Dong Dong along. I saw Gu Jichuan instinctively about to chase after them. Gu Jichuan, I called out. He halted mid-step and turned to look at me. If you go after her, we're getting a divorce, I said calmly. 13. He stared at me in disbelief. Ya Jun, what did you just say? I repeated my words. Gu Jichuan shook his head incredulously. She's your sister. Didn't you hear her say she'll kill herself? I shrugged. Then go die. Gu Jichuan shook his head in disbelief. Even if you dislike your sister, what about Dong Dong? Didn't you love Dong Dong the most before? Gu Jichuan paused. You once told me Dong Dong was adorable, that you'd even be willing to raise her if your sister let you. Have you forgotten all this? Of course I haven't forgotten, it's etched in my memory. How could I ever forget how my genuine love was betrayed in our past life? I said again. Gu Jichuan, when Zhou Yuting told you my mother treated her poorly, you believed her. When I told you to ignore her, do you know why? Gu Jichuan's lips parted as if to speak, but I raised my hand to stop him. Because she likes you, because she couldn't resist approaching you, even knowing you're her sister's husband. What about you? I think, in our past life. Whatever reason Gu Jichuan had for being with Zhou Yuting, but in this lifetime, none of that has happened yet. Well then, I'd like to see how you'd handle this. Gu Jichuan, just as I expected, the first thing I noticed was him instinctively avoiding eye contact. Humph, I see now. So he knew Zhou Yuting's feelings all along. They might have even had something going on behind my back. Just me, naively believing this man was oblivious to Zhou Yuting's feelings. Only because she's my sister did I care for her and look after her so attentively. At this moment, my heart died. In my past life, I never found answers and remained confused. Now everything has become clear. Gu Zhichuan first avoided my gaze, seemingly gathering his thoughts before saying, Yajun, what kind of nonsense are you talking about? Yuting is your sister, you know perfectly well what a woman's reputation means. You'd better think this through. Gu Zhichuan grabbed his coat and ran after her. I stared at the closed door before resuming packing my belongings. The next morning, I arrived punctually at the research institute with my luggage. 14. Our professor didn't take this outdoor archaeology project seriously at first, but after a day and night of bumpy travel, when we finally arrived on site, he realized the gravity of the situation. He speculated this burial complex must be far more extensive than what's currently uncovered. We quickly got down to work, exhausted from the day's labor. We fell asleep immediately that night, only to be startled awake by strange noises outside the tent around midnight. When we tried to investigate, the male classmates keeping watch stopped us from leaving the tent. He told us to stay inside. I spent that entire night on edge, my nerves frayed. The next morning, we learned someone had broken into the tomb under cover of darkness. There were 3 intruders, 1 got away, but the other 2 were apprehended. Before long, I saw police officers arrive to take them away. Armed police stood guard there every day after that. Gradually, I grew accustomed to the work here. 6 months later, the excavation work at this site came to a temporary halt. We had to hire local farmers for assistance at multiple sites, as the burial complex was simply too vast. The current phase of excavation work can now be concluded. The professor asked if I wanted to come along for the return trip. After a moment's thought, I nodded in agreement. It's time to settle things between Gu Zhichuan and me. 15. 6 months ago when I left, I told Gu Zhichuan about this trip to northern Shaanxi with my professor. Without knowing our exact location, he naturally couldn't reach me. I never wrote him any letters either. On the ride back, I was dozing off, thinking about my relationship with Gu Zhichuan, brooding over the resentment of being deceived in my past life, planning my next moves. The bus jolted along, leaving me dizzy and lightheaded. It wasn't until we arrived that I realized I was probably running a fever. When I got back to the apartment, no one was home. Out of habit, I pushed open my bedroom door only to find Gu Zhichuan's belongings everywhere. Suddenly I remembered what Zhou Yuting had said that day, but I prefer the other room we saw earlier. It has bigger windows. Could it be that Zhou Yuting never actually left during these past 6 months? It seemed to confirm my suspicions. When I pushed open the door to Gu Zhichuan's former room, I found the curtains had been replaced with pink ones at some point. The bedding now had powder blue covers, and the room was filled with new toys. Snacks were spread across the table too. Apparently, Gu Zhichuan knew Zhou Yuting loved this room, so he even vacated it for her. I smirked sarcastically, sat in the living room waiting for their return. 16. Brother-in-law. Sorry for the trouble, making you wait for me again. It's not safe for a girl to come home this late after work. I really appreciate you finding me this job. You wouldn't believe how many people envy me working at the state-run restaurant. Zhou Yuting noticed Gu Zhichuan hadn't entered and instinctively looked up, only to see me watching them with a detached expression. Sis, you're back. Zhou Yuting stole a glance at Gu Zhichuan before murmuring hesitantly. Gu Zhichuan seemed to finally snap out of it, his face lighting up as he stepped inside. Yajun, you're back. I'll let you two talk. I need to pick up Dong Dong. Zhou Yuting turned away, hesitated for a brief moment, then walked out. Sit, I said coolly, watching him. The smile faded from Gu Zhichuan's face as we sat there in silence. The luggage I brought back still sits by my feet. As Gu Zhichuan was about to speak, I cut him off. Let's call off our engagement, Zhichuan. He sprang to his feet. What did you just say? I stood up too. Our engagement, it's over. I was about to leave with my luggage when he stopped me, his eyes filled with confusion. Why are you suddenly calling it off? He seemed utterly bewildered. Why do you want to break off the engagement the moment you return? Have you fallen for someone else? After speaking, Gu Zhichuan's eyes reddened at the corners, as if he'd been publicly humiliated by infidelity. I let out a sigh, gazing at this man I once truly loved in my past life, stripped of love's halo. He's just ordinary after all, utterly average, 2 eyes and a mouth like anyone else. I didn't want to drag this out, so I decided to lay all my cards on the table. Gu Zhichuan, what were you thinking keeping Zhou Yuting after I left? Gu Zhichuan looked puzzled at first, then suddenly had an epiphany as if a great weight had been lifted off his shoulders. So you said all that because of Yuting? As Gu Zhichuan spoke, he reached for my hand, but I dodged his touch. He sighed and gazed at me with indulgent affection. as though I were some petulant woman throwing a tantrum. Yuting, she's your sister. If you leave, she'll have nowhere to go. This is the only place she can stay. He paused. Are you mad at me? Mad that I didn't come home the night before you left? That's because she ran off that day. I spent half the night looking for her. She was too scared to come back, afraid you'd scold her. That's why Uncle. Dongdong's voice rang from the doorway. The moment he appeared, he shot like a rocket into Gu Zhichuan's arms. Gu Zhichuan effortlessly scooped the child up, even delighting Dongdong by lifting him high in the air. Zhou Yuting watched them with sparkling eyes before turning her gaze back to me. Sis, I brought groceries. Don't expect gourmet cooking though, Zhou Yuting said with a faint smile before heading straight to the kitchen. Clearly familiar with the place, the corner of my mouth twitched. Her words were clearly marking me as the guest here. I couldn't be bothered with her and walked out with my luggage. Yajun. Gu Zhichuan only caught up when I reached the doorway. He grabbed my suitcase with a death grip. Yajun, where are you going? We've finished our discussion. So I'm heading back to the dorm. The professor said we're going to Beijing in a few days and asked me to bring the materials along. He knows I want to apply for graduate school in Beijing. The reason he's taking me to the capital is to introduce me to an old classmate of his who's based there. Lost in thought, I didn't notice Gu Zhichuan suddenly yanking at the luggage. I won't let you leave. Caught off guard, I stumbled and fell to the ground. I was already running a fever. And after that fall, when I tried to get up, the room kept spinning. Yajun. Gu Zhichuan reached out to steady me, but I dodged his hand, gripping the doorframe to stand. I said, I don't want to fight. You know it's over between us. Gu Zhichuan shook his head. I waited half a year for you, and you vanished without a word for half a year. I haven't blamed you once, and the first thing you do after coming back is call off our engagement. Zhou Yajun, have you no heart at all? As the words hung in the air, Gu Zhichuan stormed in and slammed the door shut. I shook my head and slowly made my way downstairs, steadying myself against the wall. 17. After dropping my luggage at the dorm, I finally went to the clinic to get some medication. Then I drifted in and out of sleep until noon the next day, waking up to find my fever had broken. I finally felt relieved. Just as I was about to grab some food, I opened the door and saw Gu Zhichuan standing there. His eyes were bloodshot, looking like he hadn't slept all night. I took 2 steps back to let him in. For a moment, we just stood there in silence. After what felt like an eternity, he let out a bitter laugh. Yajun, I never thought you'd leave me. I gave him a cool glance without speaking. Yajun, I know you're bothered by your sister, but I never realized how much, he said with a bitter smile. I've already talked to her. I'll find her a place and have her move out. She won't stay here any longer. Gu Zhichuan looked at me as if he'd made some monumental decision on my behalf. Memories of my past life surfaced. She lived with us for 3 years as well. Eventually I couldn't stand her wearing my clothes and barging into my room unannounced. It was Gu Zhichuan who noticed my displeasure, and only then did Zhou Yuting move out. Little did I know, in the previous life, when Zhou Yuting moved out, it was Gu Zhichuan who rented the apartment for her. He even financially supported her. I glared at Gu Zhichuan. Trying to have your cake and eat it too. 18. Gu Zhichuan's eyes widened. What did you just say? I scoffed. So you want her to move out, but still expect to rent her a nice place? For how long? A month? A year? Or maybe her whole damn life? I watched Gu Zhichuan's face gradually pale. I mercilessly exposed his hypocrisy again. You claim to want a child-free life, yet you dote on Zhou Yuting's kid like it's your own flesh and blood. You're proposing to me while renting a place to keep her. Gu Zhichuan, how dare you want to have your cake and eat it too, with that pathetic paycheck barely bigger than mine, or with that disgusting fantasy of having both sisters. Gu Zhichuan tried to argue back, but I shut him up with a slap. Consider that slap payback for what he owed me in a past life. I flung the door open. Get out, Yajun. Gu Zhichuan remained seated, still trying to explain. I sneered with undisguised disgust. Gu Zhichuan, you make me sick. Gu Zhichuan paled slightly. Did you just call me disgusting? The only reason I look after Yuting is because she's your sister. If Yuting weren't your sister, why would I bother treating her so well? Gu Zhichuan's expression softened as he finished speaking. Yajun, I couldn't stand listening to him anymore, so I slammed the door and stormed out of the dorm. It wasn't until I'd walked 2 blocks that the knot in my chest finally began to loosen. If Gu Zhichuan had actually admitted to being fickle and having feelings for Zhou Yuting, I might have respected him more. At least that would have shown some backbone. He had the nerve to claim it was for my own good while fooling around with Zhou Yuting. What a disgusting hypocrite. That made me, who originally wanted nothing to do with them, suddenly decide they shouldn't get off so easily. 19. After dinner, I deliberately avoided the street corner on my way back to the dorm. The aunties who'd finished dinner early and were chatting at the corner spotted me and swarmed over, asking why they hadn't seen me around lately. I wiped the corner of my eye and said I'd been away for quite some time. The aunties' expressions changed instantly. One stepped closer, eyeing me seriously. You say you haven't been around lately. I nodded. So the girl staying at your place these days is really your sister? I looked up, hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Xiao Zhou. You'd better tell the truth. She's your real sister, isn't she? Don't you dare fool us. Another middle-aged woman nodded in agreement. I've seen Dr. Gu and her together all the time lately. If she's not your blood sister, this is serious trouble, I quickly explained. Yes, she's my stepsister. Doesn't that count as family? I looked up at everyone with questioning eyes. After a brief silence, someone asked me, why aren't you at home? Where are you heading? I paused, tears welling up again. There's no room at home, so I'm staying in the dorm for now. After speaking, I glanced at them hesitantly before covering my mouth and running off. Someone was still calling after me. I dashed back to the dorm in one breath and chugged a whole kettle of water. Humph. Gu Zhichuan, you actually think you can have your cake and eat it too in this lifetime? Just you wait. 20. That very evening, Gu Zhichuan came by again. The moment he saw me, he gave me this complicated look. What's the matter? I frowned. Yajun, I told you there's nothing between me and Yuting. What exactly have you been saying about us outside? Gu Zhichuan paused before continuing. Before I could respond, he added hastily, someone caused a scene at the restaurant, calling her a homewrecker who drove away her own sister. The hospital administration spoke to me about this. Yajun. Gu Zhichuan gave me a disapproving look. Even if Yuting isn't your biological sister, you grew up together, you wouldn't actually want her to lose her job, would you? So what do you propose? I asked curiously. Gu Zhichuan's eyes lit up. Yajun, go talk to the restaurant staff. Just explain it was all a misunderstanding. He produced another ring and said, we're getting married soon. Look, this is the ring I bought for you. Yajun, come home with me. The dorm can't compare to our own place. I know you're uncomfortable about Yuting. I can ask her to leave. I also know you might have reservations about me not wanting children, but that's fine. If you want kids, we can have one. Or, if you'd like to take Yuting's child in, that's fine too. Don't worry, I'll treat them as my own. Get out. I've had enough. 21. On the third day, I went to the state-run restaurant. Zhou Yuting thought I'd come to plead for her, and came trotting over to grab my hand. Sis, did my brother-in-law send you? Ugh, that's just like him. I told him not to worry, but he just wouldn't listen. Whack. Zhou Yuting stood there stunned from the slap. Even the manager jumped in surprise. I glared at Zhou Yuting. You knew perfectly well Gu Zhichuan and I are getting married. I offered you the dorm, but you refused. I stormed off for 6 months over this, and when I come back, you've even taken over my room. What? Can't live without a man, or does stolen love taste sweeter? The moment I finished speaking, the room erupted in murmurs. Zhou Yuting covered her flushed face. That's not true, you're slandering me. I won't indulge her nonsense. You actually convinced your brother-in-law to remain childless just so we'd adopt your out-of-wedlock baby. Zhou Yuting, you've really outdone yourself this time. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs once again. No matter how Zhou Yuting tried to explain herself, nobody believed a word she said. Of course I knew Gu Zhichuan's decision to be child-free was entirely his own choice, but that didn't stop me from pinning the blame squarely on Zhou Yuting. 22. After this incident, Zhou Yuting couldn't possibly stay here any longer. She packed her things dejectedly, ready to leave. I followed her back. The moment she saw me, she flew into a rage. What have I ever done to you? Why must you make my life miserable? Why, you know perfectly well it was Brother Gu's decision not to have children. How dare you blame me for it? I'm your own sister. How could you be so cruel? Zhou Yuting glared at me with bloodshot eyes, her gaze burning with fury. I looked at her calmly. That's right, I am your sister. What grudge do you hold against me to steal my man? Zhou Yuting's lips trembled slightly before she turned to leave without another word. Wait a second. She turned around. What else do you want? Fine, I admit I was wrong. I'll leave. Okay, what more could you possibly want? Zhou Yuting threw down her luggage and screamed hysterically. I gave her a cool glance before asking, so you're just going to walk away like this? She froze. What do you mean? I sat down leisurely. You came here for Gu Zhichuan, didn't you? Are you really willing to leave just like that? She stared at me in silence. I grabbed my bag and stood before her. If I were you, I'd never leave so easily. I'll make a scene, accuse him of having improper intentions, claim we've already been intimate. After all, if I let such a good man slip away, finding another like him would be nearly impossible. Don't you think? Zhou Yuting gave me an inscrutable look after hearing my words. Her head drooped. 23. After spending a night back at the dorm, I left for the capital with my professor the next day, 24. From then on, all the messy business here became a distant memory. Side story, Gu Jichuan. I first met Yajun at a friend's gathering. It was love at first sight. Later, through a mutual friend's introduction, we officially got to know each other. I never imagined that Yajun and I would ever part ways in this lifetime. The problems between us probably started after we made our relationship official and I met her family. Her mother brought her younger sister over several times to discuss our wedding plans. That's when I found out her sister wasn't actually her biological sibling, but she's quite adorable. Even after having a child, she still seems so innocent and pure. Turns out Yuting couldn't continue her education simply because her family could only afford to send one child to school. Though I only found out later that all of this was Zhou Yuting's fabrication. That child of hers doesn't even know who the father is. After Yajin left, she caused a scene at the hospital where I worked, claiming we'd already been intimate as husband and wife. Furious, I spent ages trying to explain, but the hospital still sent me home to sort things out, clearly hinting I should resolve my domestic issues first. Back home, I confronted Zhou Yuting about why she'd slandered me. There was absolutely nothing between us. The sweet little sister I knew suddenly bared her fangs for the first time. She snapped, "Stop pretending. If you weren't interested in me, why would you let us live together alone? Why else would you rent an apartment for me unless you had ulterior motives?" Later she threatened, "Marry me or I'll report you." I hesitated. The only reason we barely kept our jobs was my overseas education background. I shook my head at the woman before me, once charming, now consumed by greed. Only then did I realize how wrong I'd been. Some people and things are better left untouched. I wanted to beg Yajin for forgiveness, but when I reached the dorm, I found she'd already left. Last time, at least I knew where she'd gone. This time, she vanished completely from my life. After dragging things out with Zhou Yuting for over half a month, I finally had to concede defeat. I had no choice but to marry her. Otherwise, I'd have no future. How could my wife possibly be a woman who slept with men at 14 or 15, even bearing an illegitimate child? But, I realized, this bitterness, I had to swallow it, even if it made me gag. Years later, after 7 or 8 years of marriage, she still hadn't conceived. That's when I realized she'd become infertile after giving birth to Don Don due to physical complications. I felt utterly defeated. When I didn't want children myself, it didn't matter. But the thought of her promiscuity causing our infertility was absolutely unacceptable. After that, we started sleeping separately. I couldn't bear having such a filthy body lying beside me day and night. Don Don grew up, and I paid for his wedding and starting a family. A child not of your own blood will never truly be yours. Things were fine before marriage, but he moved out with his wife right after the wedding. Months would pass without even a phone call, even when I was hospitalized. He just dropped by briefly and left. That's when I finally realized what kind of person I'd been raising all these years. Years later at my mother-in-law's 70th birthday, I finally saw Yajun again. She looked almost unchanged. Her jet black hair remained straight, her complexion rosy. She looked scarcely different from 2 or 3 decades prior. In my past life, I abandoned my beloved archaeology career just to stay by his side. Yajun, who once promised me we'd be child-free together, now has a son and a daughter. Her husband seems to treat her well. She saw me, nodded, her eyes devoid of any emotion. My eyes welled up with tears. Yajun, I regret it. My whole life, it shouldn't be like this. The end. Story 2. Pei Chei's childhood sweetheart is dying. I was lying on the operating table when I heard the news. Pei Chei threw down the scalpel and said to his colleague, "Please take care of my wife's surgery." With that said, he turned and walked away, watching Pei Chei's retreating figure. I couldn't hold back as tears streamed down my face. The next second, the cold scalpel instantly pressed against my skin. His colleague spoke indifferently, "What are you crying for? With me here, you won't die." One slap. Pei Chei wordlessly threw down the scalpel, tossed the gloves into the trash bin. "I can't perform this surgery. Get Su Nanqing to come." It was the 20th minute after Lu Yun's accident when my usually composed husband finally showed a crack in his demeanor. He urgently called off my surgery and began turning his back to everyone, pretending to calmly remove his equipment, yet his slightly trembling hands betrayed him. Lu Yun was in trouble, and he was worried sick. He wished he could fly to her side the very next second. "Professor Pei, your wife's heart rate is very fast. She's extremely nervous. Are you sure you want to leave at this moment?" A dull ache spread through my chest. I calmly told the nurse, "It's fine. Any doctor can perform the surgery." Everyone in the operating room looked at me with pity in their eyes. I just smiled. The day Lu Yun returned, I knew my marriage with Pei Chei had come to an end. To make Pei Chei abandon the dying Lu Yun and perform surgery on me, he couldn't accept it. nor was I willing to entrust my life to such a person. The operating room door slid open silently. A tall figure wearing a mask walked in. It was Pei Chei's colleague, Su Nanqing. As their figures crossed paths, Pei Chei said, "Nanxia's surgery, I'll leave it in your hands. If I don't go now, I might regret it for the rest of my life." Listening to his words, my tears silently streamed down. How embarrassing. Nan Xiao, it's just being abandoned once again. Why did I start crying? A sudden shadow fell before my eyes. The cold blade of a scalpel pressed against my skin. The usually aloof and taciturn Dr. Su spoke calmly. "Why cry? With me here, you won't die." 2. The surgery lasted 2 hours. By the time it was over, evening had already fallen. Heavy rain began falling outside the window. Su Nanqing stayed by my side until confirming my condition was stable before leaving. When Pei Chei's call came through, my anesthesia had just worn off, and I was drenched in cold sweat from the pain. Answering the phone, a lively and charming female voice came through. "Sorry, sis-in-law, I don't know how." His friend relayed the message. "It's just a minor scrape." But Pei Chei rushed over without considering the severity. "I've already scolded him for it." Then, her coquettish voice came through the phone. "You're already in your 30s, yet still so impulsive. Did you think this was back when we were dating? There's 1 cup of milk tea left. Take it to your sister-in-law as an apology." A rustling sound came from across, as if Pei Chei had snatched the phone away. "How many times have I told you? Stay put if you don't want your wound to fester. She just had surgery, she can't drink milk tea. These were all bought for you." The conversation on the other end was peaceful. Only Pei Chei's brother felt extremely wronged. "I just mentioned you were in a car accident, and he got so anxious he hung up the phone." "What does that have to do with me? Keep your lovey-dovey stuff to yourselves. Don't drag me into it." I suddenly felt nauseous from the pain of the wound. My chest ached from the pressure. The request for Pei Chei to prescribe painkillers died on my lips. I hung up the phone without a word. The nurse pushed the door open, handed me a pill, and said with a smile, "Here, this is the painkiller prescribed by Dr. Su, take it and get some rest early." 3. Since I still had to work, I was discharged after just 3 days in the hospital. Pei Chei's car was parked right outside when I stepped out of the hospital. Out of habit, I opened the passenger door. A faint gasp was heard. Only then did I notice Lu Yun pulling her leaning figure back from the driver's seat. Her disheveled collar, combined with that slightly provocative gaze, left me frozen in place. "Sis-in-law, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." She looked like she was about to cry from anxiety. Pei Chei removed the strand of hair tangled around his wristwatch, cold with a hint of reprimand. "What nonsense are you talking about? Don't let your sister-in-law misunderstand." After speaking, Pei Chei explained to me. Her hair got tangled in my watch when she picked something up. I knew Pei Chei wasn't lying to me. He has always been open and aboveboard. Before marriage, Pei Chen clearly told me, "I've had a past relationship, but after marriage, I will remain loyal to you." But sometimes, this boundary can become blurred, becoming a breeding ground for ambiguity. For example, right now, suppressing the bitterness in my heart, I said, "Pei Chei, let's talk. I don't want anyone else present." Perhaps my emotions made Lu Yun feel uneasy. Biting her lip, she said, "Pei Chei, I should just take a taxi back. Sister-in-law seems angry." Pei Chen remained calm and composed. "Can you walk on your own legs?" Lu Yun's face turned pale as she forced a smile. "I'll try my best." But she didn't get up immediately, instead sitting there waiting. Even Pei Chen turned to look at me. His eyes were calm and profound, no different than usual, yet somehow I knew Pei Chei wanted me to say something, preferably something refined and proper, but I didn't want to endure such unfair treatment. I stepped aside from the doorway and said to Lu Yun, "Get out, there are plenty of taxis at the intersection." Lu Yun froze, then walked away with reddened eyes. I sat down in the seat she had occupied. The atmosphere in the car was suffocating. After a long pause, Pei Chei finally spoke gently. "There's no need to take your anger out on her because of my departure. You know, the emergency department called. It was just a routine consultation. I would have left for anyone in that situation. I don't have the energy to dwell on what was really going through his mind at that moment. I just feel so exhausted. Pei Chei, let's get a divorce." Pei Chei slammed on the brakes, sending items tumbling across the car floor. He slightly furrowed his brows. "Nan Xiao, why must you do this? Is it all because of Lu Yun?" I endured the dull pain from the knife wound and said, "Yes, it's all because of Lu Yun." A sudden cry of pain abruptly came from outside the window at this moment, accompanied by the honking of cars. Lu Yun fell at the street intersection, the most conspicuous spot, clearly visible from here at a glance. Gazing at the surging crowd outside the car window, I smiled sarcastically. "Your Lu Yun has fallen. Aren't you going to check on her?" Pei Chei exuded an icy aura as he restarted the car. You're about to divorce me. How could I possibly care about an outsider right now? 4. The atmosphere froze solid during the drive home. When we arrived, Tuanzi proactively rubbed against us, meowing at both of us. This was the cat Pei-Che gave me the year we got married, normally when sleeping. Tuanzi likes to sleep between him and me. Pei-Che stared at Tuanzi for a while before bending down to pick him up, saying helplessly, Tuanzi, Mom and Dad had a fight. Can you ask Mom to forgive Dad? Okay. Tuanzi meowed understandingly and looked at me. This is how Pei-Che comforts me after every argument. He knows my heart softens whenever I see dumplings, but this time, I pressed my lips together and stayed silent. Pei-Che lowered his head first. Did you take the painkillers Su Nanqing prescribed for you on time? Was it you who told him to open it? Pei-Chen raised a delicate eyebrow. Otherwise, did you think I didn't want you anymore? Pei-Chen leaned in to kiss me, his slender hands cradling my cheeks, his cool fingertips sending shivers. Nan Xiao, I'm not so foolish as to destroy our marriage. As my mind wandered, his gentle whisper reached my ears. Be good. Let's not get divorced. Okay, no, not good at all. 5. If Lu Yun had returned 3 years ago, I wouldn't have minded. After all, Pei-Che and I met through a blind date, a scholarly family matched with a medical family, a well-matched marriage, yet the emotions were faint. I work as a teacher at a university, Pei-Che is busy with work, and in the first year of our marriage, the number of times we went on dates could be counted on one hand. I don't remember when I fell in love with Pei-Che. Perhaps familiarity breeds fondness. Perhaps it was the rainy night when I got into a car accident and was viciously insulted by the perpetrator, that Pei-Che came rushing through the rain, a dignified medical professor, who got into a physical altercation with the perpetrator for my sake. With injuries on his face, he wiped away my tears, his tone both helpless and doting. What are you crying for, Jojo? You can always rely on me. Yet this reliable man appeared in Lu Yun's social media just 3 days after I was discharged from the hospital. That day I had just finished class and was standing in the office getting water. Opening the social feed, Lu Yun's post unexpectedly appeared before my eyes. She had fresh bandages wrapped around her knee. Caption: The price of abandoning me halfway was having the great professor personally come to change my dressings. After a while, she deleted the post. Resent a message. Got scolded. Next time I'll stay put and wait for you to come back. Added a cute selfie, simply gentle, with slightly swollen lips, just like a kitten being comforted after enduring grievances. In the corner of the photo was the wristwatch Pei-Che had taken off. My hand trembled slightly as I set down the cup. It wasn't until a colleague nearby called me that I snapped out of the indescribable nausea. I recognized the table in the corner of the photo. It's Pei-Che's parents' house. He brought Lu Yun home. My parents always said I had a strong vengeful streak. When bitten by a dog as a child, I had to bite it back. Things have gone this far. I have no reason to endure it anymore. I decisively gave Lu Yun a like, commented below, nice watch. Then I set my phone to silent mode. After finishing the lecture for students, it was already approaching noon. When I opened my phone, I found Pei-Che had called me 7 or 8 times, and Lu Yun had called 3 times. The social media post had already been deleted. Pei-Che's call came through again. His tone was helpless. Nan Xiao, why aren't you answering the phone? It's Monday today. I have classes to teach. He choked up for a moment, only then remembering I never answer calls during lectures. In those silent seconds, I thought he was considering how to explain it to me, but speaking first would only make it seem more suspicious. I just waited quietly. Soon, Lu Yun's sobbing could be heard. I'm sorry. Sis-in-law, it's been a long time since I've seen uncle and auntie, so I came to visit them today. Pei-Che happened to be here too, so he helped change my dressing. Please don't argue with him over this. I laughed. Which eye of yours saw me arguing with him? Being this guilty, you wouldn't have done something shady, would you? Nan Xiao, Pei-Che spoke calmly, reminding me, Mom and Dad are nearby, mind your manners. Lu Yun just posted to express gratitude to friends. She didn't do anything wrong and shouldn't have to endure your questioning, perhaps because I remained silent for too long. Pei-Che grew somewhat restless. When do you finish work? I'll pick you up to come home for dumplings. Mom made them herself. Feeling a tightness in my chest, I took a deep breath and said with a smile, Pei-Che, in that house, it's either her or me. What answered me was a long stretch of silence. I didn't know Lu Yun had put the call on speakerphone. My voice echoed through the living room. The whole family heard it. Pei-Che's patience ran out, and he coldly tossed out, fine, suit yourself, was the first to hang up the phone. 6. This should be the first Cold War between Pei-Che and me in 3 years of marriage, neither too early nor too late. Right when Lu Yun's play Reunion Lovers was released, the teachers in the office couldn't stop praising this play. I heard it's about reuniting with an ex, quite touching. Many people got back together with their ex after watching it. I blocked out all the gossip and went to Pei Chei's hospital carrying an honorary banner, taken by Su Nanqing. Pei Chei isn't here. Maybe you could give it to him personally another day. He wore a light blue mask, his skin pale and cool, hands tucked in the pockets of his white coat, aloof as ever. I smiled and said, "This is for you. Thank you for performing the surgery on me last time." Su Nanqing studied me with those pale eyes of his. Without saying much, he hung the silk banner on the wall. I asked him again, "Dr. Su, I'll come back to you for the suture removal, right? Since your Pei Chei is busy, you came to me instead." Pei Chei definitely doesn't have time. During this period of Cold War, he moved back to the Pei family home. The number of house calls increased from twice a week to 4 times a week. Yet never contacts me. Probably wants me to take the initiative and visit him at the hospital, but I never went even once. Instead, I chose times when he wasn't there and had Su Nanqing take over my follow-up appointments. Half a month later, Pei Chen couldn't take it anymore and called me. "Why do you keep looking for Su Nanqing? Follow-up consultation, Monday through Thursday are my consultation hours. Yet you specifically choose weekends to see him for follow-ups." I smiled. "What's gotten into you today? So angry? I have classes to teach from Monday to Thursday. When would I have the time?" Pei Chei's voice was icy. "Nan Xiao, do you realize what you're doing? Some people are just like that. When they themselves waver in a relationship, they become overly suspicious, assuming their partner would do the same." I kindly discussed with him, "How about rescheduling your consultation hours to weekends?" Pei Chen fell silent. Lu Yun's theatrical performance was scheduled for the weekend. He couldn't bear to part with it. I hung up the phone and looked up to meet Su Nanqing's calm and desolate gaze. I froze slightly. "What's wrong?" Su Nanqing lowered his eyes, his slender fingers gently brushing over my medical records. "Nanxiao, you've been prescribed sleeping pills 3 times this week. I can't give you any more." "It's okay, you can still fall asleep when drunk. Thank you for these past few days." Su Nanqing stared at my forced smile and suddenly asked, "Do you want to drink together tonight?" "What?" He took off the rubber gloves and stood up. "Department gathering. Pei Chei will probably be there too, so that's how it is. As a doctor's family member, it's perfectly normal for me to appear at their gatherings." So I agreed and went happily. Coincidentally, Pei Chei was usually present, but he didn't come tonight. Seeing that I came in vain, his colleagues all looked at me with sympathetic eyes. During the meal, they took quite good care of me, whether intentional or not. The wine Su Nanqing placed by my side was mellow and gentle, not at all pungent. Soon, I began to feel a bit dizzy. As it was nearing the end, the work group chat of these colleagues suddenly chimed. Su Nanqing's phone was lit up, placed beside me, so I saw the message. It was Pei Chen standing with his back to the camera, cooking in the kitchen. The photo was withdrawn less than 30 seconds after being sent. Pei Chei explained in the group chat, "Sorry, my wife was just fooling around." Instantly, all eyes at the dining table were fixed on me. The room fell into dead silence. 7. I knew Pei Chei had crossed the line, like a train suspended mid-air, experiencing the thrill without plunging into the abyss. He was merely cooking a meal for the visiting Lu Yun at his parents' home. I cannot question it. Otherwise, it would be making unreasonable demands. Honestly, I should have seen this coming, shouldn't I? I've learned to accept such things calmly, and I don't even feel heartache anymore. After the dinner gathering, everyone decided to let Su Nanqing give me a ride home since it was on his way. Before getting in the car, Pei Chei's female colleagues came over to comfort me. "Don't overthink it, get some good rest first." I drank quite a bit, numbly thanking everyone, then I rested my head on the chair and fell asleep. Su Nanqing drove very steadily. So much so that when the car stopped downstairs and he called out to me, I was jolted out of my dream. My phone had somehow slid over to Su Nanqing's side. I instinctively reached to pick it up. My hair got caught on Su Nanqing's wristwatch just like that. The situation is eerily similar to a soap opera. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Sorry, Su Nanqing took off his wristwatch and immediately distanced himself from me, making it easier for me to remove the hair myself. Before I could thank him, the car door was suddenly yanked open from outside. A cold wind rushed in. Pei Chen stood at the door, his voice carrying the calm before the storm. "Nan Xiao, you'd better explain clearly what you're doing." This was probably the first time Pei Chen lost control in front of me. His voice could barely contain the anger. Gripping my wrist tightly, he dragged me out of Su Nanqing's car. Most of my drunkenness faded as I calmly looked at him. "Let me go. I didn't do anything." I saw everything. For the first time, a trace of anger appeared on Professor Pei's usually composed and calm face. I suddenly remembered the almost identical scene on the day I was discharged from the hospital. The corners of my lips curled into a mocking smile. My hair just got caught on his wristwatch. Don't misunderstand. Pei-Che probably remembered that day too. The angry expression froze on his face. 8. Pei-Che's instinctive reaction still disgusted me. Because I knew that if he were truly innocent, he would argue with me vehemently after I said those words, saying that his relationship with Lu Yun was completely innocent, and that I was being unreasonable. But Pei-Che didn't. He was flustered, panicked, let go of me, and didn't say a word for a long while. So, the moment Lu Yun approached him, he genuinely considered having a grand reunion with her after their long separation. He even thought about abandoning his responsibilities as a husband. Pinning Lu Yun against the seat, and kissing her fiercely, it was my appearance that brought back his shitty conscience as a husband. I turned back calmly and thanked Su Nanqing. I still have something to say to Pei-Che, be careful on your way back. Su Nanqing nodded and left. The surroundings were eerily quiet. I ignored Pei-Che and turned to walk toward the stairwell. Nan Xiao, let's talk. Pei-Che reached out to grab me, but I suddenly turned around and slapped him hard across the face. The sharp sound of the slap echoed through the hallway. Long-suppressed grievances and anger erupted in an instant. I remembered his retreating figure leaving the operating table, remembered the fear and helplessness of being abandoned by my husband. Trembling with rage, I said coldly, Pei-Che, don't fucking touch me. I find you disgusting. I don't know how Pei-Che explained things to his family. In short, Pei-Che took the initiative to end the Cold War and moved back in. He bought many toys for Tuanzi and carried the cat around in front of me every day, repeating the same trick. Xiao Xiao, could you hold Tuanzi for a while? I took the rice ball and absent-mindedly kneaded it a couple of times, just as he thought I had forgiven him. The doorbell rang. My parents appeared at the doorstep. Nan Xiao, I heard you two are going on a business trip. Well, you guys take Tuanzi back to raise for now. When will you be back? Not sure yet. Our parents noticed the tension between us and silently picked up Tuanzi before leaving. Closing the door, I saw Pei-Che's pallid face. I lightly tossed the toy he had just handed me onto the floor. Consider the divorce. Tuanzi stays with me. As for the rest, let the lawyers handle it. Only at this moment did Pei-Che realize I was serious. His gentle demeanor vanished without a trace. He uttered 4 words stiffly. I disagree. Nan Xiao, Lu Yun and I are completely innocent. If you dislike her, I can cut off all contact with her. Whatever you want, whatever makes you happy, I'll go along with it. How did I become the unreasonable one again? I pulled out the chair and sat down, speaking softly. Pei-Che, who cares who you like? If I want a divorce, can't it just be because I've had enough of you? Pei-Che's following words got stuck in his throat. He accused me. Is it because of Su Nanqing? I took a sip of water. Pei-Che, stop being unreasonable. Su Nanqing and I are completely innocent. If you can't stand him, I can cut off contact with him. As long as you happily divorce me, I'll comply with whatever you say. In less than a minute, his own words were thrown back at him. For the first time, I saw a look of utter exasperation on Pei-Che's face, but I'd lost interest in arguing with him. Whatever your relationship with Lu Yun is, that's exactly what mine is with Su Nanqing, pure and blameless, open and aboveboard. We'll talk when you've made up your mind, a sentence dripping with sarcasm, plunging our relationship to freezing point. Pei-Che refused the divorce, leaving us at a stalemate, yet soon enough, he tasted the bitterness of his own actions coming back to haunt him. Whether it was when I delivered fruit to Su Nanqing, spoke up for him in Pei-Che's presence, or messaged Su Nanqing during meals due to wound concerns, Pei-Che's long-suppressed emotions finally erupted. He slammed his chopsticks down right in front of me. Nan Xiao, what exactly do you want me to do? I've already cut ties with Lu Yun. How much longer are you going to keep this up? On the phone he threw at me were long, pleading messages from Lu Yun. Pei-Che, please talk to me. Are you getting back at me for breaking up with you? I was wrong, okay. Let's just be friends from now on. I'll behave and never disturb your life again. I placed my own phone on the table as well. Lu Yun has ulterior motives toward you. Isn't it natural for you to ignore her? Why should I give up my primary physician just because you rejected her? My chat history with Su Nanqing is completely normal. Follow-up appointment on Saturday. Is the wound still hurting? Much better. Then prepare to remove the stitches. Okay. Pei-Che couldn't find any fault. But as a surgeon, his wife having someone else remove her stitches was the biggest issue. I knew what Pei-Che wanted to say, so I preemptively cut him off. You didn't perform the surgery on me, so don't interfere with the follow-up treatment. I'm the kind of person who believes in staying faithful to the end. 9. Pei-Che was sitting in the living room. He hadn't spoken for a long time, whether it was from sheer anger towards him or not. After eating, my lower abdomen became unbearably swollen and painful. Without hesitation, I grabbed my coat and prepared to head to the hospital. Pei-Che looked up, noticed my pale face, and asked, "What's wrong?" I avoided his touch and opened the ride-hailing app. Seeing my destination set to the hospital, Pei-Che grabbed his jacket. "You won't get a ride this late, don't be stubborn, I'll drive you." He was telling the truth. As soon as he finished speaking, his phone rang. Lu Yun's name popped up on the screen, perhaps out of survival instinct. I grabbed it and hung up Lu Yun's call. "Pei-Che, I'm not feeling well. Take me to the hospital." Then Lu Yun called again. I answered the phone instantly. "Call one more fucking time and I'll tear you apart with my own hands." After saying that, I hurled the phone violently against the wall. The screen was shattered into pieces. I don't know what's wrong with me. My forehead was covered in fine beads of sweat. Pei-Che no longer hesitated, supporting me as we walked out. Passing by the doorway, he bent down to pick up the broken phone. At that moment, the screen lit up. Lu Yun sent a text message. "H.A., if this is your choice, would it be better if I disappeared from this world?" Pei-Che's expression changed instantly. Forgetting what he was supposed to do, he dialed a number, put on his clothes, and rushed out. Forgot to even close the door. The tremendous noise turned on the hallway lights. A neighbor opened their door and looked at me curiously. I couldn't hold on any longer. Kneeling on the ground, "Please take me to the hospital. I didn't know I was pregnant, and about to have a miscarriage." When Su Nanqing arrived, he happened to hear the doctor say, "Do you want to keep the baby? If we don't handle it now, it'll be very difficult to save." Actually, I had a premonition on the way here, and I've already made my decision. "No." Su Nanqing stopped at the doorway. The person who entered was a nurse from their department, a warm-hearted elder sister. Thinking that I had quarreled with Pei-Che, she advised me to calm down while grabbing my phone to call Pei-Che. Matters concerning children should be carefully considered. Where has Pei-Che gone, leaving his wife in such a state without care? In the mindset of their older generation, having children was a joint decision for a couple. I suddenly felt extremely tired. At this moment, I no longer had the strength to resist. The instant the call connected, Lu Yun's voice came through first, slightly hoarse. "Nan Xiao, I'm really sorry for letting you be so pleased with yourself these past few days. Pei-Che is in my bed right now. Did you make him angry? He was really passionate with me just now." The female colleague's expression changed abruptly, and she quickly hung up. When I called back after regaining composure, her phone was already turned off. I've grown accustomed to sympathetic glances, smiling calmly. "Sorry, his infidelity has made me a laughingstock. Perhaps it's for the best. Hospitals are breeding grounds for gossip anyway." Professor Pei, once as clear as a breeze and bright as the moon, has now been exposed to a scandal in public. His days of misfortune are not far away. 10. The abortion procedure took only a very short time. I leaned against the hospital corridor while Su Nanqing discussed the necessary precautions with the doctor. Afterwards, he sat down beside me. "Hand me a cup of hot water. I feel the warmth from your palm." "Thank you, Dr. Su. There are some things. I took advantage of you. If I've caused you any trouble, I'm sorry." Su Nanqing gazed calmly at the night scene outside the window. "There's nothing to apologize for, Nanqiao. I'm not some clueless young man in my early 20s. What?" Seeing me staring intently at him, Su Nanqing stood up and casually remarked, "It's nothing. Sister Wang will come later to take you to Pei-Che's lounge." Pei-Che only learned about my pregnancy the next day. I had just stepped out of the lounge when he rushed to the hospital in a hurry. "Nan Xiao." Pei-Che's voice was urgent as he rushed over and carefully cradled my face in his hands. His eyes revealing unmistakable relief. "We're going to have a baby. He probably doesn't realize he still carries the scent of Lu Yun's perfume on him." I frowned slightly. "Where did you hear that news?" "Sister Wang told me." Sister Wang was the kind-hearted woman who called him last night. Pei-Che's habit of only half listening is probably incurable. Lu Yun appeared behind Pei-Che at some unknown moment. Her sweet smile concealed hidden jealousy and provocation. "Sis-in-law, I heard you're pregnant." Last night Pei-Che even came looking for me. Completely out of his mind, she must have thought she was speaking in riddles before everyone. "Feeling great, aren't you?" But she didn't know that her words from last night had spread throughout the hospital overnight. At that moment, several people behind her suddenly realized and started pointing at her with their phones, confirming she was the shameless mistress from the phone call. The atmosphere on site felt somewhat eerie. Lu Yun paused briefly, but didn't dwell on it. I suddenly found it all quite ridiculous. Pei-Che frowned. "Nan Xiao, what are you laughing at? Didn't anyone tell you I aborted the child?" Pei-Chen's expression stiffened. "What do you mean by that?" Seeing my mocking smile, Pei-Chen's face stiffened as he coldly rebuked. "Nan Xiao, how dare you make decisions without consulting me? I am your husband." The room suddenly fell into an eerie silence. I couldn't suppress the sarcasm in my voice. Do you even remember you're my husband? What were you doing last night when I called you? Pei Chen's eyes darkened. You called me? Yes, Lu Yun answered. She said you were being very passionate with her in bed and told me not to disturb you. The crowd erupted in gasps. This mistress is really brazen, daring to come to the hospital and flaunt herself before the rightful wife. Pei Che's entire body froze. My hand trembled as I looked at Lu Yun's horrified expression. Is what she said true? Lu Yun's face turned deathly pale, only now realizing the strange looks from those around her. She didn't know what went wrong, just shook her head in panic. She's lying. I didn't. I didn't. I calmly delivered the final blow. What she said wasn't just heard by me. Your colleagues all heard it too. Pei Che, your mistress is this brazen. How dare you have the audacity to ask me to keep your child? 11. Lu Yun broke down completely. She cried uncontrollably. She fled in panic under the judgmental gazes of the crowd. Pei Che seemed to have lost his senses, standing frozen in place for a long while without reacting. Local news spreads like wildfire. That very afternoon, the gossip traveled from medical circles to theater circles. The group chat was filled with all sorts of vicious remarks. How glorious for Lu Yun to be the other woman, so impressive. Why doesn't she go live and talk about it? During the play, she told everyone she wouldn't add WeChat. Acting all high and mighty. Turns out she's just a filthy fly. The next day, when I went to the hospital to get medicine, I ran into Lu Yun with reddened eyes. Lu Yun stopped me, begging for my forgiveness. Nan Xiao, we don't need to make things so difficult between us, right? Just help me clarify things. And I'll lead Pei Che. Clarify what? Just pretend I never said those words. Okay, she cried bitterly. I can't lose my job. I grabbed her hair and said calmly, Lu Yun. I told you I'd tear you apart, didn't I? I dragged her to Pei Che's office. I'll give you a chance. The evidence is in my hands. You can decide between you whether you lose your job or Pei Che loses his. But I suggest you sacrifice yourself. Firstly because you love him so much. And secondly, if Pei Chen loses his job, are you going to support your dear brother? That day, separated by a door, I heard Pei Chen's nearly out of control roar. My heart as calm as still water. Lu Yun seemed to be crying. Chen, it's just that my possessiveness is too strong. I just hate that woman. I just don't want her to monopolize you. We're clearly a match made in heaven, so why? Enough, Pei Che said coldly. Yuri just the other woman. Lu Yun cried out in disbelief. Pei Che, that's not what you said. You clearly love me. Why don't I love my wife, but love you instead? Am I crazy? Hearing Pei Che's almost mocking words, Lu Yun broke down. Then get a divorce. We'll move away and live together. I can be your wife. Forget it, Pei Che said distantly. You destroyed everything I had. Someone like you, I can't afford to keep. You see, when his interests aren't at stake, his first love is like a white moonlight, a cinnabar mole. But once he lost everything, his first love, the white moonlight and cinnabar mole, all turned into shit. Actually, I was just saying it for fun. I don't want to let either of them go. After Lu Yun left, I walked in and threw the divorce papers in Pei Che's face. I don't want to move, and I don't want to see you, so don't go back to that house. Don't argue with me. I don't want to make this any uglier. Pei Che sat there, pale-faced, without saying a word. When I got home, I threw all of Pei Che's belongings out. I sent Lu Yun several boxes of Pei Che's personal belongings. I even sent her a separate message about it. All yours now. Enough for a month, enjoy the passion. Since Lu Yun had acted in theater productions, she had considerable popularity. Her identity had already been dug up by enthusiastic netizens. Online discussions were buzzing. Oh, so her reconciliation was actually breaking up someone else's family to be the other woman. I really want to hear the audio of her provoking the original wife. Here's a lead for you at Xiaoyu Loves Life, Sick Edition. The blogger was sick and went to the hospital. And just happened to record the other woman's phone call in the background. I never expected someone actually recorded it, and someone even remixed the audio. He's so passionate about me suddenly spread everywhere. Lu Yun became an instant sensation. Several times, Lu Yun was accidentally caught in street interviews, fleeing in panic through others' lenses, looking utterly disheveled. Many people gathered below the drama troupe, asking, is enthusiastic sister still working? Hasn't this morally corrupt person been fired yet? A few days later, the drama troupe issued a statement. Lu Yun had been expelled. After that, I never saw Lu Yun again. 12. In the blink of an eye, autumn arrived. Pei Che's incident caused a huge online uproar. And the hospital fired him. I took a long leave to recuperate my health, waiting for Pei Che to sign the divorce agreement. In just one short month, everything was turned upside down. The pain of betrayal occasionally resurfaces late at night. We had beautiful memories, kisses we couldn't resist, and moments when a mere touch of fingertips made our hearts race and faces flush. It's precisely because of these that these 3 years feel more like a dream, after waking from the dream. We're faced with the bloody reality. I feel miserable, wronged, resentful, and in pain. Fortunately, it's not something too unbearable. Time will eventually smooth everything out. Late one night a few days later, Pei-Che called me. I was grooming Tuanzi, so I put the call on speakerphone. Pei-Che's voice echoed through the empty house. I thought he was going to discuss the terms of divorce with me. Yet he suddenly started talking about the past. It's laughable when you think about it. The one who betrayed first ends up becoming the most devoted person in the end. Jojo, do you remember that time at Happy Valley when you wanted to cross the bridge and I carried you on my shoulders? I said calmly, I remember. It was 3 months after our wedding, on my birthday. The first couple to reach the finish line could win a small cake, but you accidentally dropped me into the water. Pei-Che smiled. Yes, I blamed myself all day. At the hot pot restaurant, you got drunk, leaned over to kiss me, and said you didn't blame me. That was the first time my heart raced for you. I didn't speak, just patted the dumpling's bottom as she bounced around on the sofa. Pei-Che asked again, do you remember the night of your car accident? I remember, you got hurt protecting me, and I cried. The Christmases that came after, I remember, the New Year's Eve I worked overtime, and the dumplings you brought me. I remember, the sunrise on a snowy night in Nantang. The sunset by Songming Lake, I remember. Pei-Che fell silent. After a long pause, his voice grew hoarse. Nan Xiao, our memories are so numerous that a lifetime wouldn't be enough to recount them all. Yes, a lifetime wouldn't be enough. I smiled. But the moment you slept with Lu Yun, all those memories ceased to belong to you. You were the one who betrayed everything, so the pain should be yours to bear. I heard Pei-Che's labored breathing escaping from the pain. Pei-Che, I won't erase the past that belongs to us. Because I was happy, I was blessed, but that's all there is. The reason I can talk about the past with you isn't because I can't let go, but because I've already moved on. No one said that one person must accompany another for a lifetime. I won't look back, nor will I forgive. The other end of the phone fell into a long silence. Pei-Che asked hoarsely, I don't have a chance anymore, do I? I stroked Tuanzi's ears. Send me the divorce agreement as soon as possible. Let's part on good terms. 13. Pei-Che's perspective. After signing the divorce agreement, he and Nan Xiao entered the divorce cooling-off period. When they first got married, he felt like 2 months passed as slowly as years. A matchmaking-induced wedding always comes with countless trivial details to worry about. Restless and irritable, he could only hope for it to end quickly. Yet 3 years later today, Pei-Che feels time has passed so swiftly. The marriage he once resisted with all his might is visibly speeding toward its end. In the last 2 months, Nan Xiao never forgave him. The wife he remembered, soft-hearted and gentle, left with such resolute finality. Pei-Che often felt that the month he drifted away was like a dream. The first love of his youth had become unrecognizable after all these years. But it wasn't just Lu Yun who had become unrecognizable, there was also him. By the time Nan Xiao was seen again, it was already late autumn. The trees along the street had shed their leaves. She was dressed more heavily than others, seemingly more sensitive to the cold. Pei-Che thought of their unborn child, feeling an indescribable sorrow in his heart. Nan Xiao, wearing a scarf, walked up to Pei-Che with a relatively kind tone. There was some traffic on the way. Pei-Che raised his eyes and looked in the direction she had come from, but there was nothing there. The suspended heart seemed to find a slight sense of relief, but more than that, it was bitterness. I'm in a hurry, let's make this quick. Nan Xiao was the first to walk towards the Civil Affairs Bureau. For a fleeting moment, Pei-Che suddenly wanted to grab Nan Xiao, hold her in his arms, and say he regretted it. He wanted to say that Lu Yun was just an obsession from his youth. The one he loved was Nan Xiao. But this thought vanished in an instant, dissipating without a trace. Nan Xiao had said that if an amicable divorce wasn't possible, she wouldn't hold back anymore. His parents were getting old, he was unemployed in middle age, facing the dilemma of having to seek work far from home. Once employed there, the chance of returning would be slim. The parents lost all face over this and remained ill for many days without recovery. He didn't want to lose even the last shred of dignity. There weren't many people getting divorced today. Yet the counter window moved as if someone had pressed a fast-forward button. In the blink of an eye, the paperwork was completed. The moment he received the divorce certificate, Pei-Che felt it weighed 1,000 pounds, crushing him until he could barely breathe. Nan Xiao stood before him, the autumn sun sliding past the eaves, drawing a stark line of dawn and dusk between him and her. Pei-Che stood in the shadows and asked Nan Xiao, "What are your plans from now on?" Nan Xiao replied indifferently, "No particular plans, just work and live as usual." Watching Nan Xiao's hair being tousled by the wind, he instinctively raised his hand to brush it aside. "Nan Xiao, having received someone's message, turned her head to look toward the street corner. The strands of hair and his hand just missed each other. A black car had stopped at the street corner at some point unnoticed. Nan Chao left in such a hurry that she didn't even have time to turn back and say goodbye to him. Pei Che stared at the pair of hands on the steering wheel for a long time, his mind in turmoil, his thoughts in disarray, but he didn't dare to approach. He was afraid the person in the driver's seat might be Su Nanqing, or perhaps some other man, so I could only stare unblinkingly at those hands. The autumn wind blew, tears blurring my vision. The day Lu Yun returned, I knew my marriage with Pei Che had reached its end. Right, Pei Che failed to see clearly. Pei Che left his hometown. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. On New Year's Eve, he sat in the chilly duty room, where the biting cold wind outside couldn't penetrate the warmth of fireworks and the joy of family reunions. Once again, he couldn't return home this year. His parents were already extremely dissatisfied with him. And due to that incident, almost all his relatives and friends had ceased contact. Pei Che seemed to have truly become all alone. Because of this, the dumplings Nan Chao delivered through the heavy snow on that New Year's Eve became an unattainable dream for the rest of his life. Just after midnight, New Year's greeting messages came pouring in one after another. A message popped up. Did you know Nan Chao got married? Pei Chen stared at that message, sitting motionless for a long time. After a long silence, he still couldn't muster the courage to ask who the groom was. Instead, he opened the chat dialogue with Nan Chao. The last record was 3 years ago, when Nan Chao asked him to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a divorce. After much hesitation, Pei Che typed out the words, "Happy New Marriage." The sound of firecrackers made his chest ache. He took a deep breath and pressed the send button. A red exclamation mark popped up. The firecracker noises happened to stop at the same moment. The world fell into complete silence, just as his heart withered into desolation. Story 2. My childhood friend suffered from food poisoning and kidney failure. I donated a kidney to save him. However, he accused me of being shameless, deliberately poisoning him in order to marry him, and morally blackmailing him with my kindness. We were married for 30 years, and he resented me for 30 years, before he died. He told me not to pester him in the next life. He said he felt disgusted. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day when he and his white moonlight went camping and had food poisoning. I immediately bought a plane ticket and went traveling. 1. Dr. Shen, an emergency. Amidst the commotion, I opened my eyes groggily. In front of me was the new intern nurse, looking at me anxiously. Seeing that I had woken up, she immediately heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Dr. Shen, you're finally awake. There's an emergency case in the nephrology department just now. It's food poisoning. Please go and take a look quickly." Looking at the familiar scene in front of me, my heart was pounding like a drum. Sure enough, when I took the medical record, Song Qingyan's name was written brightly on it. All of this told me that I had been reborn, at this time in my previous life. It was me who went to diagnose Song Qingyan. It was also then that I learned that he had severe kidney failure due to food poisoning. If there was no suitable kidney source, he probably wouldn't survive for more than 3 days. I met Song Qingyan when we were young, and we were childhood friends in the eyes of our friends. They didn't know that I had a crush on Song Qingyan, so when I learned the news that he was going to die, I was in a complete mess. I even went to do a kidney match and personally donated a kidney to him. Only then could Song Qingyan survive, but I didn't expect that this was the beginning of my descent into hell. It was also the last straw that pushed me to my death. I calmed my mind and took the preliminary diagnosis form handed to me by the nurse. According to the companions, it was because they ate wild poisonous mushrooms in the wild and even ate barbecue marinated with expired meat, which led to food poisoning. At this time, the patient is almost out of breath. In my previous life, I didn't pay attention to the companions she mentioned. It was not until I saw Song Qingyan that I realized that it was his white moonlight, the person Song Qingyan had liked since childhood, Su Jiao. It was also because of going camping and having a picnic with her that he got food poisoning. By the time he knew that I had donated a kidney to him, Su Jiao had already become disheartened and left. And Song Qingyan married me to repay me, but after marriage, he accused me of being shameless, morally blackmailing him with my kindness to marry me. He hated me for 30 years, hated me for breaking up his relationship with Su Jiao, and wished that I would die. Even before he died, it was Song Qingyan who personally stabbed a scalpel into my heart. It was you who forced Jiao away. Even without your kidney, I could still survive. What identity did you use to donate, just because you wanted to marry me? How could you be so cheap? If there's a next life, don't pester me anymore. I feel disgusted when I see you. In his last glance, Song Qingyan chose to commit suicide. I sneered in my heart and pushed the medical record back. I remember that Dr. Lee is on duty in the emergency department of the nephrology department today. He has handled many similar cases and must be more qualified than me. Looking up again, my face was calm. Saving people is my job, and I can't shirk it. However, judging from the medical record, I'm afraid the patient already has severe kidney failure. We should find a kidney source as soon as possible. If we miss the best opportunity, I'm afraid even the gods can't save him. The nurse saw that I had a serious expression and immediately nodded and ran away. She was probably going to find Dr. Lee. As soon as I let out a sigh of relief, my phone rang urgently. I paused for a moment and still answered it. Xiao. I heard that Qing Yan was admitted to the hospital. Do you know about this? On the other end of the phone was my mother's anxious voice. I'm a doctor in the emergency department of the provincial hospital, and my mother thought of me immediately. Hearing her care about Song Qingyan, I lowered my eyelashes. No wonder. My mother never knew that Song Qingyan had a white moonlight. She always regarded him as a prospective son-in-law. She even joked that she had arranged a baby marriage for us since we were young. Even so, my mother still treated him sincerely. However, Song Qingyan was an ungrateful person. He not only threw my mother into a nursing home but also prevented me from seeing her for the last time. Thinking that nothing had happened yet and everything could be redeemed, I calmed down. Mom, I don't know about this. I'm not on duty tonight. I heard that he went out to play with his friends. There should be someone taking care of him around him. It's so late today, you should go to bed early first. I promise you that I will go and see him first thing tomorrow morning. With my repeated reassurances, my mother finally hung up the phone with peace of mind. I immediately switched to the travel app and looked at the nearest flights to the island. I booked the earliest plane ticket and hotel and sent a message to the director asking for leave. Director, you said last time that you would give me a good vacation. I have submitted my leave application. Please approve it for me. The director didn't seem to have rested yet and immediately replied to me, Little Shen, I've received it. This time, you can take a good vacation and don't rush back. After packing my things, the lights in the emergency department still seemed to be on. Lying inside was Song Qingyan, the person who hated me for 30 years in my previous life, and this time, I chose to respect other people's fates. His life no longer required me to sacrifice myself. I really wanted to see how he could survive. 2. The plane landed the next day, and when I turned on my phone, there were countless messages. The previous day, I packed my luggage overnight and had a good sleep on the plane. In my previous life, I was driven to a mental breakdown by Song Qingyan and had trouble falling asleep. This was the first time I had a good sleep. There were many calls from Song Qingyan on my phone, as well as voice messages he sent me. Xiao, I had food poisoning and am in the hospital where you work. Can you come and see me? I know you're the most famous nephrology doctor. You will definitely be able to help me find a kidney source and save me, right? I had never seen Song Qingyan like this before. He was arrogant and never bowed his head to ask for help when encountering things, even in my previous life. After having my kidney source, he agreed to marry me with a smile. He never bowed his head to me because I saved him. In the face of death, life is as insignificant as dust. I didn't reply to him and reported my safety to my mother. By the way, I mentioned that when I went to see Song Qingyan, he was in a coma, so I didn't see him, but my mother, not only because of our long-standing friendship but also because of my ineffable feelings for Song Qingyan, treated Song Qingyan's matter personally. She even treated him like a biological son. Thinking of this, I said softly, Mom, since I was a child, I have only regarded Song Qingyan as an ordinary older brother and have no other feelings. Moreover, he already has someone he likes, and we shouldn't disturb him. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone, and I heard my mother's relieved response, Mom just wants you to be happy. Everything else doesn't matter. My heart felt sour, and tears couldn't help but well up in my eyes. I let out an and hung up the phone. In my previous life, when my mother found out that I had donated a kidney, she was so angry that she had a heart attack and fell ill. She never expected that I would go to such lengths for Song Qingyan, but the matter had already happened, and there was no room for redemption. My mother could only accept this fact. In this life, I will no longer risk my life for Song Qingyan. Even though I sent Song Qingyan a message saying that I was not in the hospital, his call came immediately. There was noise, scolding, and crying on the other end. It immediately made me think of Su Jiao. Seeing that the call was connected, Song Qingyan could hardly hide his anxiety and immediately asked, Xiao, where are you? I'm on a business trip in another city. What's the matter? I replied casually and put away my luggage in the hotel. Seeing that I had no desire to communicate with him at all, Song Qingyan was silent for a long time. In the past, as soon as I answered his call, I couldn't wait to share my daily life with him. I would even take time out of my busy work to make soup for him. Song Chingyan had a poor stomach and couldn't eat when he had a stomachache if he wasn't taken care of properly. When I knew about this problem in school, I stayed up all night to study recipes. It was only after marriage that I found out that a lot of the things I made ended up in Su Jiao's stomach. Su Jiao was a poor student in our class. She wore a washed-out white shirt. She had just transferred not long ago but captured Song Qingyan's heart. Even when I saw his eyes being attracted to her, I was powerless. I was even caught by her taking the soup I had made with my own hands, and Song Qingyan didn't care at all. I won't walk with you anymore in the future. She can't keep up with the class progress, and I have to tutor her. Can you stop targeting her? You must have done all these things. Is it necessary? Shen Yunxiao, you really surprise me. But all of this was Su Jia's self-directed and self-acted drama. Looking at her provocative eyes, I bit my lips tightly. I could only lower my head and explain to Song Qingyan, but Song Qingyan was unmoved. And even a mocking smile curled up on his lips. Shen Yunxiao, you're really disgusting. Finally, I could only watch the two of them leave together, leaning on each other. After waiting for a while, I finally got annoyed. My face was calm as I got closer to the microphone. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up. Wait, Song Qingyan suddenly gasped for breath on the other end of the phone. I heard his words full of anticipation. Xiao Xiao, when will you come back? I want to see you. I pursed my lips and smiled. But my voice was cold. Then just keep thinking about it. Even though Song Qingyan apologized to me for his previous slip of the tongue, he would never say such things to me for no reason. He must have his own calculations. 3. I was lying on a beach chair, feeling the gentle sea breeze. In front of me was the vast sea and a group of seagulls ready to take off. This was a place I had never been to in my previous life. The vacation I should have had was completely delayed by Song Qingyan's illness. I even had to go to the hospital for consultations every rest day. In the end, I had never seen the sea in my dreams. But in a moment's post, Song Qingyan, who should have been in the hospital for an examination, posted a photo of this place. Beside him was Su Jiao in a white sundress. The two of them were tightly hugging each other, acting like a couple, and the caption of the picture was, "Accompanied you to the sea you like. Even though I didn't marry you in the end, I will always protect you." But just the day before, I also wanted Song Qingyan to accompany me to see the sea, and he looked impatient and even threatened me with not taking his medicine. What's so good about that dirty place? Taking good care of me is your task. Until I died, I had never been there once. I suppressed the strange emotions in my heart and booked a ticket for my mother as well, to let her stay away from what would happen in the future. It had been a week when I returned to the hospital again. It was Dr. Li who took over Song Qingyan's condition. When handing over the condition, he sighed. The little nurse beside him immediately reacted and said, "Dr. Shen, you have to stay away from the family members later. They're not easy to deal with." I raised my eyebrows and saw Aunt Song standing at the door of the ward. Aunt Song was Song Qingyan's mother. She brought him up alone. Because of such a life, she had a strong personality. She also wanted to take full control of Song Qingyan's life, and my mother also had a close relationship with her. That's why they arranged a baby marriage for us when we were young. Originally, I thought that I would marry Song Qingyan as expected and finally have a happy family, but I didn't expect that Su Jiao was the only variable. The two had different identities and were not well matched, which made Aunt Song unhappy. Moreover, Su Jiao had a leech-like family. Even though Song Qingyan treated me badly, Aunt Song was not at fault. I took 2 steps forward to say hello but accidentally saw another person lying on the bed next to Song Qingyan. Su Jiao was wearing a hospital gown. She tried to drill into Song Qingyan's arms regardless of the tubes on her body. This sight was really eye-opening. When Aunt Song saw me coming, her originally furrowed brows also relaxed. "Xiao Xiao, you're back from your business trip." I nodded with a smile and didn't respond. Pushing open the door, the two of them looked like they had been interrupted and quickly separated, but they pulled on the wounds on their bodies. Suddenly, Su Jia's eyes were wet, as if she was about to cry, but when she saw Aunt Song, she just turned her face away and stopped talking, and Song Qingyan beside her had a firm look in his eyes and protected Su Jiao. "Mom, you're not allowed to be fierce to Jiao. Her body hasn't recovered yet. Moreover, she's the one who saved my life. We'll get married as soon as we're discharged from the hospital." Hearing these words, I, who was watching the show aside, was also stunned. Although Song Qingyan was still very weak, his face was ruddy. It was completely different from his appearance in my previous life. If he didn't have a matching kidney source at that time, he probably wouldn't have been rescued. But now, there was a beating kidney in his body, combined with Su Jiao's shy expression. I could guess. It was Su Jiao who donated a kidney to Song Qingyan. I didn't expect that what she did was contrary to her innocent appearance. When Aunt Song heard these words, the anger that she had originally suppressed flared up again. She pointed at Su Jiao and said angrily, "If it wasn't for her insisting on taking you camping and having a picnic and even bringing you expired meat to eat, how could such a thing have happened? You don't even listen to your mother's words anymore. You've been bewitched by this woman. She did save you, but if it wasn't for her, how could you have been in danger?" I didn't comment and took the opportunity to look at the machines twice. I took out a pen and ticked on the notebook. In my previous life, I was the one lying here. When Song Qingyan found out, he got extremely angry. He even casually picked up the things placed beside him and threw them at me. "Why is it you? Did you deliberately frame Jiao to make me have food poisoning?" "I'm not sick, the one who's sick is you." Blood flowed down my forehead, and my eyes were filled with a blood-red light. Song Qingyan still didn't seem to be satisfied and shouted at me angrily, "Who do you think you are? How dare you donate a kidney to me? Did you plan all of this? Why are you butting in on things that have nothing to do with you? Where's Jiao? Where did you drive her away to?" In the midst of the chaos, Su Jiao pushed open the door of the ward. She was wearing the white dress she wore when she first met Song Qingyan. Her eyes were swollen, and she choked with sobs as if she had already cried. "Since she saved you, you should repay her. I'm an outsider and won't appear in front of you anymore in the future." Before Song Qingyan could react, Su Jiao turned around and ran away. The final outcome was that Song Qingyan apologized to me and agreed to marry me. Obviously, the result was what I wanted. I even hurt myself to save him, however. When I saw Song Qingyan looking at me with cold eyes, my heart still felt as if it was being cut by a knife. In this life, he got to marry Su Jiao as he wished. He must be extremely happy in his heart, right? When Song Qingyan saw me coming, his expression froze for a moment. It seemed that I was no longer useful to him, so he turned his head and stopped looking at me. "Why are you here? Weren't you on a business trip outside?" My face was calm as I stepped forward to carefully check the instruments. "You're overthinking. I just came to take a look at the situation." When Su Jiao saw me, her face took on a different expression, and the corners of her mouth turned up slightly. "Yunxiao, long time no see. I didn't expect you to be just an intern nurse here. It seems you're not doing so well." Her tone was sharp and full of sarcasm. "If you hadn't chosen to target me and fight with me for Qingyan back then, maybe I would have given you a hand." As soon as she finished speaking, Aunt Song slapped her neatly. The sound of the slap was clear. It landed on Su Jiao's face, making it swollen and extremely comical. Su Jiao seemed not to have reacted yet. She immediately covered her face with her hand, and tears instantly fell. Aunt Song sneered and retorted, "What a petty attitude. Xiao Xiao is the top doctor in the emergency department. What identity do you have to speak? Not to mention that you haven't married into our family yet. Xiao Xiao is like a daughter to me, and I won't allow you to slander her." Song Qingyan beside her wanted to say something but was glared back by Aunt Song. The atmosphere was awkward. I bent down and got close to Su Jiao's ear, tucking her loose hair behind her ear. My hand gently stroked her cheek, and I smiled innocently. "There are so many people here, I won't hit you. If I find out that you're spreading rumors about me next time, believe me, you won't want to know what will happen to you." I secretly exerted force and pressed hard on her swollen area. As I wished, I heard her take a sharp breath. "By the way, I don't care about you at all. All of this is just my duty. Don't think of yourself as so noble." After speaking, I straightened up and wanted to turn around and leave, but Song Qingyan grabbed my wrist. I turned around and saw Song Qingyan's flushed face. Finally, he asked, "Xiao Xiao, why don't you care about me like you used to?" There was a sincere look in Song Qingyan's eyes, not like he was faking it. In a trance, I thought of the him who was very kind to me in the past. Song Qingyan and I were childhood sweethearts and well matched in social status. From childhood to adulthood, he always protected me and gave me all the good things. Even he held my hand and made a solemn wish under the night sky. "Xiao Xiao, I will definitely accompany you for a lifetime. If I can't do it, may I die a bad death." I also thought that we would walk through life without any obstacles, but I didn't expect that things would go against our wishes. All my feelings for Song Qingyan had already disappeared completely when he hurt me. Now, when I heard his words, I just found them ridiculous. In my previous life, I was like a fool, trying to win him back and running around him. In the end, I ended up with a tragic death. But now that I don't go around him, he blames me again. Song Qingyan is really greedy. Obviously, he already has Su Jiao by his side, yet he still won't let go. I shook off his hand that was holding me and said indifferently, "We have no relationship. What caring are you talking about? Let's turn the page on the past. After all, I was also at fault. From now on, we'll go our separate ways." There's no need for us to meet after you're discharged from the hospital. After speaking, the nurse outside the door came in to change the medicine. I turned around and left with Aunt Song, but Aunt Song called me to stop. Xiao Xiao, what you just said. I understood her hesitation but just smiled gently. No matter what happens between him and me, I will always respect you. Since he has made his choice, I don't need to make myself unhappy. Aunt Song was an understanding person and immediately realized the enmity between us. She had been very kind to me since I was a child, and I couldn't take my anger out on her. However, Song Qingyan had done things that hurt me in the past, and I couldn't just let it go. I suppressed the hatred in my heart. Now was not the time. She held my hand, unable to hide her regret after being reborn. My love-struck brain has also been cured. 5. When I returned to the office, the intern nurse called me cheerfully. Dr. Shen, haven't you had lunch yet? Someone brought us meat buns. Come and have two. The meat buns were steaming and exuding a delicious aroma, which was really tempting. I picked one up and casually asked, do we have a lot of funds recently? Why did you buy so many? The intern nurse shook her head and pointed to the ward at the very edge. It was brought by the family member of that patient, the one with food poisoning. They brought it to thank us. My hand that was about to put the bun in my mouth paused, and I turned to look. Didn't we say that we're not allowed to accept things from the patient's family members? What did your teaching teacher teach you? I frowned and stopped talking. It was Song Qingyan's ward. I had just met Aunt Song, and she didn't mention this matter. Then it must have been Su Jiao who brought them. Thinking that they had food poisoning from eating spoiled meat, I always felt that something was fishy. I broke open the meat bun and took a tentative bite. Immediately, a spoiled taste filled my mouth. I frowned and spat it out, confirming my guess. The meat filling used in the meat bun had long since spoiled. I called the nurse and asked her to take the meat filling to the third floor for testing. I put away the rest one by one to preserve the evidence. Recalling the gloomy look in Su Jiao's eyes when I left just now, I immediately reacted. I'm afraid Song Qingyan's food poisoning was also related to her. Moreover, clearly she went camping and had a picnic with Song Qingyan. Why was she fine when she brought the buns? Recalling that he happily told me that Su Jiao invited him to a picnic, Song Qingyan didn't bring anything. Then these ingredients could only have been brought by Su Jiao. There were rumors in school that Su Jiao's family ran a steamed, stuffed bun shop. The store was small and not very hygienic. Only because the prices were cheap did a few people go to buy, but it was soon shut down because of spoiled food. I'm afraid those spoiled meats were related to her. Even, Su Jiao did it on purpose. And now, she wanted to use the same trick again. In my previous life, I didn't know the relationship between all of this and Su Jiao. I only heard a few words about how good Su Jiao was to him during my quarrels with Song Qingyan. I'm afraid Song Qingyan still doesn't know that all of this is probably Su Jiao's calculation. Obviously, the truth is so clear in the eyes of outsiders, but he is deeply trapped in it. However, Su Jiao is too naive. I've never been a person to be trifled with. What's more, she dared to directly run into my muzzle. I dialed the police station's number and said clearly, I suspect someone has poisoned. The address is at the provincial hospital. After hanging up the phone, the meat bun had gradually cooled down due to the passage of time. The fact that I like to eat buns is not a secret, but actually, I don't really like them. It's just that Song Qingyan had a bad stomach and couldn't eat hard to digest things. That's why I learned how to make them delicious in high school. That's also why I could tell the spoiled taste with just one bite. Now it has become a reason to frame me. I looked at the medical record files of the two people on the table. Su Jiao always seems to be hiding something. I'm afraid she has some unknown secrets, but these things have nothing to do with me anymore. The siren sounded downstairs. I put the medical records on the table and smiled. 6. We received a report here. Please come with us. The police immediately led people into Song Qingyan's ward and pushed open the door without hesitation. Su Jiao looked at the door in a daze and immediately shrank behind Song Qingyan. Qingyan, I'm scared. When she saw me coming, she immediately shouted, gritting her teeth, it's you, isn't it? You reported to the police out of jealousy. I just asked my family to send some buns for you to eat. Why did you do this? I turned my head to look at her and asked innocently, I haven't even said what the matter is. How did you say it directly? Su Jiao was stuck for a moment and immediately turned her head away, but escaping couldn't solve the problem. She was suspected of poisoning with meat buns made from spoiled meat filling, which had violated the law. Even though she shouted that she had nothing to do with this matter, she could only go with them, not to mention that the hospital's machines had already detected toxic components in the meat filling. The result was clear at a glance. Su Jiao looked at Song Qingyan with tears in her eyes, her face as white as a sheet. She probably already knew the consequences. Song Qingyan comforted her softly and then turned to look at me. Xiao Xiao, was it necessary to call the police for this matter? Besides, you didn't eat them either, and it didn't cause you any substantial harm. Xiao is indeed at fault, but don't push her too hard. I think we can just let this matter go. As soon as I heard this, I almost laughed. Song Qingyan never knew right from wrong. I should have known this long ago. I looked at him calmly and retorted, what identity are you using to say these words? Besides, you also know what it's like to have food poisoning, thinking about going camping and having a picnic with her. Can't you tell what's going on? Su Jia's face turned paler with every word I said. In the end, she could only collapse on the bed. Song Qingyan should know what had happened when he saw her like this. But he couldn't blame Su Jiao, so he could only look at me with a fake calm. She didn't know about this matter either. We can't blame her. Besides, she saved me. There's a debt of gratitude between us. At this point, I was finally tired. It wasn't that he couldn't tell right from wrong. He was just incredibly stupid. How could I have liked such a person back then? I turned my head and didn't want to listen anymore. Watching the police take Su Jiao away. The prince who couldn't protect his princess looked at me angrily, as if looking at a stranger. Shen Yunxiao, I never knew you were so petty. I think everything in the past was just an act on your part. I can let go of the past, but I didn't expect you to still target Jiao until now. I couldn't listen anymore and slapped him neatly. Sorry, I'm not a doctor now. It's past working hours. I'm not obliged to accept your slander. If you dare to say such things again, the consequences will be beyond your imagination. With the hatred from my previous life, I showed no mercy in this slap. Song Qingyan didn't have time to react and was slapped, but when he saw my cold eyes, he stopped talking. It seemed that some feelings had changed unconsciously. Obviously, our relationship was so close in the past, but what had changed now? He reached out his hand, wanting to hold me back. But now I'm no longer the little girl he could hold back with a wave of his hand. Xiao Xiao, I just said the wrong thing. I had already turned around and left, not staying for him. It was almost evening when I came out of the police station. Su Jiao pushed all the blame onto her mother. After all, the surveillance footage showed her mother's figure, and it was impossible to convict Su Jiao directly, and because of the so-called accidental ingestion she mentioned, which led to Song Qingyan's food poisoning. Song Qingyan also forgave her very leniently. When I came out, I saw Song Qingyan, who had chosen to be discharged from the hospital. He glanced at me and went to support Su Jiao, who could hardly stand up. Qingyan, I didn't expect you to come and pick me up. She leaned against Song Qingyan, her face slightly flushed. Song Qingyan silently held Su Jiao. After all, we're going to get married in the future. I don't want you to be sad. I felt a chill and didn't want to watch their affectionate show anymore. But they didn't seem to plan to let me go just like that. Xiao Xiao, come to my wedding. The noise in my ears forced me to stop, but thinking about it, since they had been discharged from the hospital, getting married would definitely be put on the agenda soon. No, I have nothing to say to you, I said quietly. As expected, I saw their faces freeze. Song Qingyan forced a smile and wanted to say something, but then he heard my next words. You make me sick. 7. The next day, I received Song Qingyan's wedding invitation. It seemed that they were afraid I would say something, so they put it in the office. I didn't expect them to act so quickly, but thinking about Su Jia's forced appearance, it should be soon. I picked up the invitation. Only the date and the names of the two people were scrawled on it. Even the wedding venue was chosen casually. It was probably Aunt Song's doing. She didn't take Su Jiao seriously either. I casually tore up the invitation without caring. The red pieces fell, like a broken heart. In my previous life, my wedding was grand and perfect, except that Song Qingyan had a cold face. I thought he couldn't bear the pain, so I helped him go to rest early. Unexpectedly, he was hugging Su Jiao in the backstage. When I caught them, he just smiled it off. But clearly, I donated a kidney for Song Qingyan. However much pain he had, I had the same amount of pain. The hideous scar on my chest could never be washed away. I had no intention of interfering in their story, but they had to provoke me. Then they couldn't blame me. The wedding arrived as scheduled, and my mother also came back from her vacation. This time we met, her complexion was obviously better. Even the pent-up anger in her chest had dissipated. My mother didn't care whether Song Qingyan and I could end up together. She only hoped that I would find happiness on the day of the wedding. My mother and I still attended together, but Song Qingyan and Su Jia's faces were uglier than each other. In the end, we only participated in the wedding for half an hour. I leisurely ate the desserts that Aunt Song had specially prepared for me. When they were exchanging wedding vows, photos suddenly flashed on the big screen behind them. Su Jiao hugging someone else, abusing a kitten, and even bullying others on campus. Like a slideshow, they were shown one by one. Su Jiao was in a panic and finally splashed red wine on the big screen crazily. "It's not me, Qingyan, I'm not like this." Su Jiao grabbed his sleeve, trying to explain, but Song Qingyan shook her off fiercely. "Then tell me, who is in the photo?" The appearance of that little cat was very familiar to Song Qingyan. It was the one he often fed at school, but in the end, it disappeared without a trace. And the white moonlight in his heart turned out to be just a person who bullied others and had no sense of propriety. She was one way in person and another behind people's backs. This was Su Jiao's true nature. In order to make the wedding proceed as scheduled, the two had already obtained their marriage certificate in advance, but they never expected such things to be exposed on the day of the wedding. Aunt Song's face was extremely ugly, and she could no longer maintain her calm. Su Jiao turned her head around, and it seemed that when she saw me, she wanted to rush towards me, but she was tripped by the complicated wedding dress. "You did this, didn't you? I've long known that you, Shen Yunxiao, are not a good person, but why did you have to ruin my wedding?" Su Jiao wanted to pounce on me like a madwoman. I picked up the wine glass beside me and splashed the red wine over. "Are you sober now?" I asked and picked up the wet wipe on the table to dry my hands. Su Jiao's eyes were blurred, and she wanted to hold Aunt Song, but Aunt Song's expression was unreadable, and she shook off her hand forcefully. "Mom, don't call me Mom. I don't have a daughter-in-law like you." Song Qingyan looked unhappy and just said in a low voice, "We're already married, anyway, Mom, you should accept it." Aunt Song looked shocked, as if she couldn't believe it, and asked, "She's an unfaithful woman." "Song Qingyan, are you blind? Are you trying to kill me?" After speaking, Aunt Song didn't care anymore. She took 2 deep breaths and turned around to leave. Song Qingyan wanted to chase after her but was stopped by a little boy. "Give me all your family's money. My mom told me everything." Su Jiao looked embarrassed and wanted to squat down to coax the little boy, but he pushed her down with a shove. "Don't touch me, ugly woman." As expected, this was Su Jiao's younger brother. Because of her mother being in the police station, no one was taking care of him, but no one expected him to run out today. Now, any guest present could understand. Su Jiao married him just for Song Qingyan's money, whether on campus or now, it had never changed, and her younger brother had long been instilled with this idea. Although Song Qingyan was not from a prominent family, he still had a place in the city, but today, he lost all his face, coincidentally. Su Jiao had calculated it well and donated a kidney to him, so, he couldn't refuse either. A debt of gratitude was the hardest to repay. Having watched enough of the show, I saw my mother's unbearable look, but when I thought about how Song Qingyan treated her in the previous life, I suppressed this emotion. "Mom, let's go." In the midst of the chaos, the wedding ended hastily. 8. After this incident, many people cut off their contact with the Song family. Having such a cooperation partner was not satisfactory in the eyes of outsiders. Even Aunt Song was moody during this period. She often quarreled with Su Jiao because Su Jiao made mistakes. On the other hand, Song Qingyan also couldn't get over the photos at the wedding. Even before each quarrel, Su Jiao would vaguely mention the kidney in Song Qingyan's body. The feeling of being morally blackmailed that Song Qingyan accused me of in the previous life. It was time for him to taste it. This was his own sin, and he couldn't blame others. A week later, Aunt Song invited me to her home for a meal. I didn't want to bother with them and wanted to decline politely, but I saw the dark circles under Aunt Song's eyes, both emotionally and rationally. I still agreed. When I saw Song Qingyan again, he was much weaker, completely different from the way he looked at the wedding. I didn't say much and casually mentioned Su Jiao. Aunt Song snorted and sneered. The day after the wedding, she wanted to use the Song family's money to buy a house for them. She even wanted to split half of the Song family's property because of donating a kidney. These 2 days, she said she was not feeling well and went to the hospital. I didn't comment. I didn't expect Su Jiao to act so quickly. She had even thought about the inheritance division. If there had been no episode at the wedding, she might have succeeded. Unfortunately, I made Aunt Song see her true face. All of this was to make her face the reality. I changed the subject and replied with a smile. "Auntie, if you're in a bad mood, you can go out for a walk. If you hurt your body because of such things, it won't be worth it." Song Qingyan seemed to be paying attention here. He heard Aunt Song sigh and say, "If only Xiao Xiao were my daughter-in-law." I shook my head and refused, saying calmly, "Things have come to this. Auntie should accept it, after all. This is the person Song Qingyan personally chose. If you really want to break up this couple in love, I'm afraid he won't be willing." Before Song Qingyan saw me off, he hesitated for a long time and then said, "Xiao Xiao, do you still like me?" My heart was icy cold. I didn't know why he asked such a question. In the past, Song Qingyan turned a blind eye to everything, but now, he brought up the old things. You're joking, I've never liked you. Impossible, clearly. You were willing to make soup for me, make recipes to take care of my stomach, and wait for me to go home together every day. Even I once made a vow to you. Song Qingyan spoke slowly, as if he was very familiar with these things. He saw all of this, but in the previous life, he pretended not to understand and chased after Su Zhiyao. He even imagined that I poisoned him and stabbed me to death. Xiao, I was wrong. I shouldn't have believed Su Zhiyao. Will you forgive me? Song Qingyan choked up, and his eyes turned red for no reason. In the past, I would definitely feel sorry for him and immediately agree to his words, but now, the Xinyunxiao who really loved him had long died in the past. He no longer had the right. You're already married, don't make me dislike you. I didn't say anything more but bumped into Su Zhiyao who had just come back. I saw clearly a knife that suddenly rushed towards me and the flash of murderous intent in Su Zhiyao's eyes. At the last moment, Song Qingyan pushed me away, but he took the fatal blow for me. 9. Song Qingyan suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood. Realizing what she had done, Su Zhiyao let go of her hand, the scalpel fell to the ground, and Su Zhiyao shrank in the corner, covering her ears desperately. It's not me, it's not me. When Aunt Song heard the commotion and saw this scene, in a fit of anger, Aunt Song rushed over and started fighting with Su Zhiyao. I immediately called the police and told them to get in the car and go to the hospital without delaying the condition. Song Qingyan beside me had already fallen into a coma. The knife was thrown on the ground, lonely and stained with blood. In the emergency department, Song Qingyan was pushed in, and Su Zhiyao was taken away by the police for intentional injury. Aunt Song couldn't hide her crying. She didn't know why things had turned out like this. When the intern nurse saw me, she handed me the secondary medical record. Although the newly transplanted kidney source for the patient has been matched, the kidney source has been diagnosed with severe uremia. Now, there's nothing we can do. Hearing this, I suddenly remembered the medical record that Su Zhiyao had blurred. She had latent uremia, but she donated this kidney to Song Qingyan. In the end, Su Zhiyao wanted to die with Song Qingyan. I wasn't wrong about that flash of cold light just now. Song Qingyan's body could no longer withstand another kidney transplant, and Su Zhiyao clearly knew this. That knife just now was only a few centimeters away from the heart, extremely dangerous. I had long known that Su Zhiyao had bad intentions. I had already made preparations in advance, but I didn't expect Song Qingyan to rush over and block the knife for me. I lowered my eyes, not knowing what was on my mind. In the end, it could be considered one knife for another. After Aunt Song learned the truth, she was relieved. All of this is Qingyan's retribution. She stayed in the ward quietly for one night and packed her luggage the next day. She chose to go to the countryside to live for a while. Although Song Qingyan wouldn't die suddenly, he was now like a walking corpse. Looking at him lying on the hospital bed, I only felt a sense of déjà vu. His figure overlapped with that in the previous life and merged into one. When he was awake, Song Qingyan suddenly asked me, "Were the photos at the wedding done by you?" Yes, I admitted it frankly, looking at his eyes as if he had expected it. If it weren't for Su Zhiyao, Song Qingyan was actually very smart. Since Su Zhiyao dared to do such a thing, she should know that she had to bear the consequences. Every move and every choice of hers would affect her life. I had no intention of continuing to talk to Song Qingyan. After opening the window, I wanted to leave the ward, but I heard an apology that dissipated in the wind. He said, "Xiao, I'm sorry, I had waited too long for this apology, so much so that it no longer mattered." 10. I went to the police station again. Su Zhiyao was criminally detained for attempted murder. She also confessed to the previous food poisoning. Su Zhiyao's face was as white as a sheet, but her cheeks were abnormally red. "Xinyunxiao, you bitch. You actually dare to appear in front of me again. If it weren't for you, I would have been happy for a lifetime. I would have been with Qingyan well." She choked up and looked at me with a fierce gaze. "What are you doing here again?" I shrugged and my face was calm. "You look really confounded in this state." It was not until I saw Song Qingyan that I realized that it was his white moonlight from me, and she just laughed crazily, with tears falling down her cheeks. "I've been targeting you all along. I didn't expect that stupid Song Qingyan still believed me. Even when he finally married me, he called out your name. Since that's the case, then let's die together." Su Zhiyao coughed and finally spat out a mouthful of blood. Looking at her unconscious appearance, I only felt it was ironic. After calculating for a lifetime, this was the result. Because of intentional injury, she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. For her subsequent reflection, she could only spend it painfully here. I'm afraid this was her final ending. When I saw Song Qingyan for the last time, he was so thin that he was just skin and bones. He didn't show any of the high-spirited look he had in the past. Because of uremia, It was difficult for him to speak. When he saw me, a brief light flashed in his eyes, and then he fainted again. Since that injury, Song Qingyan's spirit had also deteriorated. Even other diseases on his body came one after another. He wouldn't live long and wouldn't be conscious for long either. He didn't even see Aunt Song for the last time. In the days when only the nurse accompanied him, Song Qingyan just regretfully repeated the past. After all, he was no longer sober. 11. Coming out of the hospital, the sun